this is Francie. She's divorced and ready for marriage again. Which one of these men did she choose? Which one will our audience choose? And this is Charles. He likes women with smooth skin, long legs, and loving eyes. We showed him videotapes of these three women, and he picked one as his date. Which one did he choose? Which one will our audience choose? Today on Love Connection, you'll find out who they picked, who the audience picks, and everything that happened on their dates. Now, here to tell us more about Love Connection is our host.
Annulment proof. This is 2025. The crumbs, the wreckage of the divorce culture has picked over the carcass of the institution of marriage. And it used to be fun and games back in the 80s, but not anymore. So we've got to help the next generation, and we're going to pour some cold water on the past generation, a.k.a. Patrick Coffin and the NFP industrial complex. All right, I'm going to put the blame for all this marriage destruction precisely at the feet of NFP law. Patrick Coffin has a new conference. In fact, it's going on at the moment. It's this week. That's why I wanted to get this video out real quick. It's called the Contraception Deception, but it's founded on not only a deception, but a heresy of this life-love connection stuff. We're going to just overturn that without a doubt, and it won't be taking too long because this video is only a minute and a half. But let's listen to what he says in his opening video and give you the counterpunch and leave you with that.
The teaching of the Catholic Church on contraception is never mentioned from the pulpit.
There's a reason for that.
It's explained. Chances are excellent that you've never seen the connection between the 1968 rejection of the encyclical called Humanae Vitae and all the other subsequent social ills that have come our way, from abortion in 1973 to the redefinition of marriage in 2015.
Okay, it's only short, so I could probably go through all this, but we're going to stop right quick. He's going to be done in 30 seconds, so bear with me, guys. The redefinition of marriage in 2015, it was redefined in 1951. I'm going to get into the notes in a minute. Continuing.
To the transgender ideology today.
Which comes from nature being allowed to be fluid in the law, okay? That's NFP law right there. We can get into that too if we need to.
To the normalization of pornography and its mainstreaming, and also the introduction of the mentality called no-fault divorce.
The mentality called no-fault divorce. Where do we begin, Patrick? No-fault divorce comes from no-contract divorce, comes from marriage covenant, comes from NFP law, as in love is essential and love is something non-objective. We're going to look at what Paul VI said about that. He said the quiet part out loud. Okay, so hang on here just a minute. What else do we got? What else do we got to talk about with Patrick? Go ahead.
It all stems from the truce of 1968.
It stems from the truce of 1968. No, it does not. It stems from 1951 when this NFP came out of the closet, okay, from political pressure in midwives. That's where it started, but hang on, let's keep going.
When Catholic leadership decided not to discipline in any way cardinals, theologians, pastors that dissented from the ancient Christian teaching that love and life belong together.
Okay, that's it. That's the whole video. That's it. The whole, listen, you know me, I'm all about ferreting out the weasel words and the nice sounding terms. Okay, so Coffin is basing his contraception deception video or conference on, what did he just say? Listen again.
Together. This is why I'm offering a course for 30 students. Okay. This is why I'm offering
Stop.
Christian teaching, ancient Christian teaching that love and life belong together.
The ancient Christian teaching that love and life belong together. Doesn't that sound great? You know, I've heard that in a song. Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. Can't have one without the other. Sounds perfect, doesn't it? It sounds so Catholic. They belong together, okay? Well, wait a minute. Is that an ancient Christian teaching, like ancient Chinese secret? No. In fact, it is a modern Christian teaching of the Spirit of Vatican II. That's what it is. And it was launched by guys like, Dietrich von Hildebrand and all the love doctors roaming around the halls of intelligentsia and elsewhere in the early 20th century and mid-20th century. This video is so dang short. Let's back up just a little bit and see if
from the truce of 1968, when Catholic leadership decided not to discipline in any way cardinals, theologians, pastors that dissented from the ancient Christian.
Okay, so they didn't. The Pope and whoever wasn't. Yeah, the Pope didn't discipline all the Humanae Vitae dissenters. Why is that? Because they were compromised. How so? Annulment proof? What are you talking about? Because they approved NFP, therefore they approve of using the body without the babies. All right? So if people are saying, well, we're not going to do that either, you want to fight about it? You want to get down in the mud about this? I don't know if we do. Okay? And then this cottage industry of NFP splainers has sprouted up ever since, and they operate one way. If you noticed in my little name tag here, it says we don't go there, because Patrick Coffin, like he's his part of what he advertises is Coffin Nation, where we go there. He don't go there. This is one place he won't go. I've been like waving, trying. At least he hasn't blocked me out, and that's good. On Facebook, I think not on X, man. Now, but he can't get an answer out of the guy. This is no-go zone stuff, and I'm going to bring the receipts, show you the docs, okay? Let's just go to the notes here right now. It's not going to take long, you guys, but we're just going to focus on this one thing that Patrick Coffin is basing all his contraception, deception talk on. The connection between love and life and how they should go together. What he really means, he's not being super straightforward. Maybe he will be in his comments. He says by law, they are inseparable. Love and procreation are inseparable. This is a heresy of taking nature, which has, taking marriage with this one nature, and we're going to add a second nature to it. That's exactly what happened to justify NFP and why we had such problems taking care of Humanae Vitae, Humanae Vitae was built, designed, promulgated to solve the NFP problem, and all it did was kick it down the road because Humanae Vitae is self-contradictory. Now, let me try to shut up here and stay focused, okay? We'll come back to In the Name of Love. Hang on. So NFP, what is NFP? Patrick, or who is it? You know who I'm talking about. The long hair guy, skater bro. Timothy Gordon. Wasn't sure what NFP was. So I looked, one of the definitions, and the one that's the most honest is from Pius XII. It's to avoid the fecundity of their union while continuing to satisfy their full sensuality. That's all NFP is. And he says if you have a really, 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 really good reason, you can do this. No, because it violates nature, because you're cutting out the natural purpose, okay? However, if the natural purpose is now love, therefore it becomes primary love, then it's cool to do this, So, by the way, speaking of divorce culture, nowadays, this whole she's divorced and they're going to have a little dating show, that's kind of out. Divorce is people are getting a little sick of it, It's just not good. People are trying to figure out something else. All we have to do is go back to Catholic doctrine. What more in the name of love is basically the question out there, because all this theology of the body, JP2 boomer stuff, the fruits are the dead marriage statistics.
In the name of love, what more in the name of love? In the name of love, what more in the name of love?
What more in the name of love? People have had it. There's nothing there that they can consent to because it's not objective. So I think there's enough people in the Zoomer generation are starting to go, all right. What's going on? We got the internet now, okay, so we can rescue this institution from the 70s stuck there, all right? This is what we're talking about right here. Now, Pope Paul the Sixth, 1976. Here's his picture. marriage exists independently of love, okay? The guy knows what he's talking about. However, he goofed up with NFP, and he goofed up with Humanae Vitae, trying to keep it all together, and he can't do it. So what it does, once you open up the definition of marriage to love, kind of like open up the windows of the church. And George Bush, we need a kinder and gentler government. We need a kinder and gentler marriage, one based on love. Wouldn't that be good? Come on, people now. Smile on your brother and love everyone right now. Love the one whatever. Listen, that's the problem right there. He talks about it. Listen what he says, okay? He goes up to, 8 years after Humanae Vitae, he goes to the Roman Rota. The Pope speaks to the Roman Rota every year, right? He says, listen, consent is an act of the will of a contractual nature. Even though people like to say covenant, it's a contract. That's what it is. Sorry, Father, Super Spaz, the guy. Who am I talking about? Father Schmitz. That marriage is not a contract? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Right there. Okay? Anyway, so there's that. Then listen to what else he says. Okay. It must therefore be absolutely denied that in the absence of any subjective element, marriage no longer exists as a juridical reality. Okay? Let's go over that slowly. We make sure we get it. This is important stuff. You have to deny, you cannot accept that in the absence of any subjective element, marriage no longer exists as a juridical reality, which means that there is no subjective element essential to marriage. Nothing subjective can be consented to. Nothing. There ain't nothing in there. That's why he said marriage exists independently of love. All right? What does that mean? That means this means the whole basis of Patrick Coffin's talk is wrong, that there's an inseparable connection between love and life. No. Love can accompany or can go with life, but life exists independent, meaning the contract, see that? Marriage contract right there? Doesn't have to. The marriage contract has objective terms, or it's not a contract. I'm going to contract with you to have 2 good hair days in a row, or contract with you to give it your best shot or try real hard. You can't put that that's subjective, all right? But I can say you're going to, perform X, or you're going to do this for me, and that's it. That's contract. That has to be that way. Sorry, this means the Protestants were the first to get going with this covenant thing because they couldn't uphold their contract because they had no law, because they had no bishops. And now, speaking of, remember how Patrick Coffin said, the mentality of no-fault divorce. The only type of separations that will work when NFP is legal is no fault, because you have love essential, which means subjective, unadjudicable. When spouses need to separate, who's to judge? No one. No fault. There's no terms. It's a covenant of love, and you can't, it's all private. Dig it? Okay? There's no getting rid of, as the church goes, so goes the world. This is why this NFP law has to be done away with. It's fake and gay. Now then, so what else did he say? This reality, as far as law is concerned, continues to exist. Okay, so marriage continues without any dependence on love. That's right. This is why, if there's no good of the spouses, it doesn't make any difference. However, your tribunal says no. There has to be good of the spouses, or you weren't capable of good of the spouses, and good of the spouses has no legal definition. Cardinal Burke can't define it. No one can define it because it is subjective. Okay? Subjective elements are never part of the marriage contract, cannot be. It is impossible for them to be. What more in the name of love? They're just doubling and tripling down because everyone wants a piece of their NFP, because even if you don't practice it, NFP law means basically anything in marriage goes. You know what I mean? In the name of love. Got it? All right. So everyone's kind of interested in keeping NFP in the yes column, except marriage is destroyed with that. I put a tweet on Twitter, the X, the other day. The only reason we have marriage prep is because we have NFP. If you get rid of NFP, there's no marriage prep, no need, because the law changes, everything disappears. All you need to know is where babies come from, and you can put some things in writing as to what's expected in marriage, and that's it. Now then, let's see. And affection has completely disappeared. For when the spouses freely give their consent into an objective order or institution, okay, that's what marriage is, it surpasses them and does not depend on them in any way. You don't have to be able to love at all in order to consent to marriage. Everyone can, because everyone is capable of salvation. Therefore, you have to be able to love to be saved, but marriage has nothing to do with that. Just like if I have a contract with you, you're going to fix my car, and I'm going to pay you a certain amount. How you feel about it the contract doesn't depend on that. Okay. All right. So it must be objective. There. That's it. How simple is that? Now, is there more? Oh, I think there is more. I put all the links in here. Okay, you guys? Maybe there is a little bit more. Now, what about this primary, secondary stuff? Because Patrick Coffin is going to say, sure, marriage is the procreation is primary, and good to the spouses is secondary, but they're all essential because they're all included, because love has to be a part of it, because John Paul II and Humanae Vitae says the unitive significance and the procreative significance cannot be separated, and that's a doctrine, and that's ancient, and no. I've talked about that in other videos. Significance is not law. Significance is not nature. Significance is iconic. It is a sign, but it's not law. Okay. Aquinas, right here. What does he say about the primary purpose, and what does he say about the legal essence of marriage? The same thing that Paul VI is saying right here. The primal perfection consisting in the very essence of a thing. And there's the link. Primary perfection, meaning you've got it all. 100% is in the primary purpose. 100% of the contract, 100% of the essence is in the primary purpose. What is the primary purpose? Anyone? Procreation, education. The primary purpose of the conjugal act is procreation. It's not education. The act is procreation. But Patrick Coffin says, you have to say it's love, or even if you say love is secondary or whatever, because it's essential, you have two co-primaries, which means nothing is primary, which means something has to be the default, and the default is the personalistic norm. Therefore, love wins, and everything else is off to the races. So to blame all these social ills and divorce and homo and porn on contraception is a bit disingenuous, or more than that, because it is what came before contraception as far as the yes column of what's perceived of the church, NFP 1951, okay? It's not an infallible teaching, but it's just the Pope saying something, and that's where it started. I think we're going to, we're going to get into that too. Oh, I gotta write something down first about the 1963 Birth Control Commission. Just a minute. Okay, I did a little digging on the Pontifical Birth Control Commission, and this, I'm going to say, is why Humanae Vitae wasn't enforced. Because, like I said in the beginning, these guys were compromised. The Pope was compromised by allowing NFP. So when people said, hey, then give us AFP, on what basis can you say no? You got to scramble for something. It's totally that's why they had to study it. They didn't, a study to see if contraception is wrong. That's crazy. But the reason they did is because, like I said, they've already got organic birth control. So what the heck? What did the commission say? Well, the majority of the people, 64 of the 69 members, said the obvious, which is what everybody says today, which is why everyone uses artificial contraception, and all the Catholics do it, and all the Catholics divorce, and all the Catholics annul, all the same as everybody else. The use of contraceptives should be regarded as an extension of the already accepted cycle method. Yeah, because if it's cool, to avoid the fecundity of their union while continuing to satisfy their full sensuality, if that is nature, if that is okay, because that's what NFP is, avoiding babies, satisfy sensuality. If that's what it is, and that's natural, and that's fine for the right reasons, who cares how you get it done? It doesn't matter, And that's why people are like, hey. So, and by the way, just because you say NFP works with nature, everything that's medical works with nature. Check it out, what they say. They get there in a minute. The acceptance of a lawful application of the calculated sterile periods, aka NFP. So if we accept that as legal because it's natural, because it's okay, because God says so, whatever, of the woman, that the application is legitimate presupposes right motives. In other words, if you have a good reason, fine, because it has nothing to do with nature anymore, which started in 1930 Lambeth. Procreation is no longer nature, but it's a duty, okay? So all you need is the right motives. Makes a separation between the sexual act, which is explicitly intended, and its reproductive effect, which is intentionally excluded, all right? So the acceptance of the lawful application of NFP, makes separation between the act and its reproductive effect. All right. So if NFP is good, you can take procreation out of the act. What's there not to like? Everyone says, cool. I want, oh yeah. Okay. Logic, basic logic. That's why the homos say love wins, because NFP says love wins. And that's why you have no way to combat gay marriage other than it's icky and we don't like it. But that's, hey, right? Oh yeah. There's no intellectual basis to stop this trans or anything, because the Pope unleashed trans when he said it's nature to not get pregnant, to pursue, to avoid pregnancy via planning, via actualized effort of a plan. To avoid pregnancy is nature, is in conformity with nature. Wrong. Never. Can't do it. Now, this is let's hear what else these guys had to say. The majority report, the bad guys, all right? The tradition, then what the Catholic Church teaches, has always rejected seeking this separation with a contraception intention for motives spoiled by egoism and hedonism. That's another way, I guess, of saying you have to pursue procreation. But they didn't come out and say that, because that would kind of ruin their case. And such seeking can never be admitted. The tradition says you can. That's right. That's why Christian Wagner says Innocent the 11th said, pleasure only is venial sin. Yeah. Okay. True opposition is not to be sought between some material conformity to the physiological process of nature and some artificial intervention. Okay, so they're saying, look, there's no difference between artificial and physiological. Now, they make a great point here that no one wants to talk about. No one says, for it is natural for man to use his skill in order to put under human control what is given by physical nature. That's all NFP is, and that's all contraception is. You're using man-made skill in nature to control nature. What's the problem? What difference does it make what kind of control you use, This opposition is really to be sought between one way of acting, which is contraceptive. The opposition is really to be sought between one way of acting, which is contraceptive, and opposed to a prudent and generous fruitfulness, and another way, which is in an ordered relationship to responsible fruitfulness, which is a concern for education and all the essential human Christian values. That is nice sounding spin. Hang on, I'm going to push pause and digest it and tell you what they're really. Okay, in a fancy way, all they're saying is the only thing that matters is what's going on between your ears. So, look, if you're opposed to prudence and being generous, you're a jerk. But if you're not opposed to being prudent and generous, who cares what method you use because it's all natural, it's all fine. There's no problem because love wins. Having babies is just a duty, it's not nature. That's why these guys are compromised, and you can't hear a sermon about contraception because they're going to have to say it's about the language of love and it violates the nature of your body language and all this crazy, stupid stuff that's major boomer joke. Can't hold water. That's why they don't go there. Okay. I don't need to say any more about that. The Minority Report. I guess there's a couple guys. Okay. Maybe more than two, but not much. So the Minority Report says, no, you can't do that because obviously you're going to change longstanding teaching, a.k.a. it's infallible because everyone's always taught contraception is wrong. Always. It's infallible. Done. Even though intended for the rationale for issuing the Minority Report, which says we can never approve of contraception, is because it should be declared that contraception is not evil in itself. Oh, if it should be declared that contraception is not evil in itself, then we should have to concede, frankly, that the Holy Spirit has been on the side of the Protestant churches in 1930. Yeah. And in 1951. Oh, what happened in 51? Midwives. All right. Okay. It should be declared that if contraception were not evil, then we have conceded, frankly, the Holy Spirit. Now, yeah. Encyclicals and speeches to midwives are not infallible anyway. But it's not that chastity can be. It's the entire history of the church, the tradition, scripture, everything. Even if there was no chastity and there was no midwives, contraception would be infallibly wrong. It should likewise have to be admitted for over half a century the Spirit failed to protect Pius XI, Pius XII, and a large part of the Catholic hierarchy from serious error. Oh, no. It would have to be admitted that since 33 AD, the Holy Spirit, not the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, failed to protect everybody. But, we're just going back till 1930. That's all, because that's when all this started, apparently. These guys, this is bad. They're hooked on NFP. I just figured this out just now. So you got to read between the lines on stuff. You got to read it slowly and carefully. No, they're not going back in history. This would mean that the leaders of the church, acting with extreme imprudence, had condemned thousands of innocent human acts, forbidding, under pain of eternal damnation, a practice which should now be unsanctioned. Yeah, that's right. This is why you can't roll back NFP now, because it would mean that leaders of the church, acting with extreme imprudence, have allowed thousands of guilty human acts which bring eternal damnation, a practice which is now sanctioned, a.k.a. NFP. Now you have all the no-fault divorce, no sin that goes with it, and all the annulments and all the messed up kids, real bad. If you admit what the church teaches, that it's always been wrong to seek this definition of NFP right here from Pius XII, right here. If it's always been wrong to avoid the fecundity of the union while continuing to satisfy their full set, if that's always been wrong, then these guys are wrong today. All right? And they will have to look in the mirror at the unbelievable amount of family carnage as a result of making love part of the objective contract. You've just blown it out. It's like having an open borders country and saying, God has no borders. Love is everywhere. So we're going to erase our borders in order to, in the name of, what more in the name of love? Well, let's have no borders. This is like no border marriage. That's all NFP does. No border marriage. No one's in charge. Nothing can be claimed except work on your love language and do counseling if necessary, and get an annulment if that doesn't work. By the time you're 80 years old and you're on your third or fourth annulment, you probably get it right and you won't care that much anymore. So, and then the kids, because they get alienated, they become part of the Annulment industrial complex too, because how are they going to object? It's too painful. They can't go there. No one can go there. Or I shouldn't say no one, but it's very difficult because you have to go through all this and then realize one of my parents was guilty. That's not easy. Okay, what else do we got? Now, so yeah, we were talking about, that we digressed on the commission. We were talking about the primary means essential, means secondary means non-essential, which means love is separate because primary is independent, per St. Thomas Aquinas, among other people. However, that's also in Casti Connubii right there. The primary end of marriage is the procreation and education of children, which means the primary end of the conjugal act is procreation alone. That's the primary end. That's the essential end. You don't need any mixture of love. Paul VI agrees. The primal perfection and the essence, the legal essence, the natural essence, the unchanging essence is procreation. Patrick Coffin, it's not love, it's not bonding, it's not unity, it's not none of that because it can't have it. Never existed. There's not nature. This is a made up, out of the blue legal definition of marriage, which was used only to accommodate NFP. And once you accommodate NFP, you have to allow the whole zoo in, all the trans, all the homos, all the divorce, and all the annulments. They come in too. It's like saying we're going to have open borders. We're not going to let anybody from Guatemala in, just Mexicans. Can't do it. You got to let them all in. Okay. Everything comes in if marriage is subjective. Marriage means anything and everything you want. And its purpose is whatever you want. Hello, homo. Hello, homo. Now, this is also really good. This is, I put the link to it. This is from 1978 article from Marshner. And I've talked about this before. It's a really good article. It's really long. It's an essay, actually. The guys just nail it, but he's pretty wordy. All right. So Father Anthony Ostenheimer, whatever his name is, Ostheimer. Okay. Catholic University Thomistic Study, Catholic U, 1939, back before they were too weird. All right. What does primary mean? People say we need to get back to like John Clark, who blocks me. We need to get back to the primary end. What does that mean? Here's okay. The primary end of anything is that principal good for which the thing consists. It is the end that first arises from the very nature of the thing and is sufficient to account for its essential perfection. Exactly what Aquinas says. Apart from any other contributing ends, like unity, bonding, love, help, remedy of concupiscence, interpersonal relationship, meeting of the minds, total, whatever you want to call it, Patrick Coffin, that says it's inseparable. Wrong. It is separable because primary is independent. Independent. The secondary end, however, is some added or accessory purpose for which the thing exists. Yes, that's also what St. Thomas Aquinas says. He says the conjugal act is secondary. That's the action, okay? But it's not the essence. The secondary end, however, is some added or accessory purpose for which a thing exists. I'm going to show you where Aquinas says that just so we get it straight. Okay, I found it. So listen, like we say, primary is first, primary is independent, and primary is essential. Because it says the primary end of anything is the principal good for which a thing exists, it is the end that first arises. If it arises first, it is independent. It doesn't depend on love, bonding, cuddles. I don't know what else you want to call it. Secondary ends. Okay. Interpersonal, personalistic norm does not depend on that because procreation first comes without the other stuff. Okay. Has to come first. It's essential. In other words, it's independent. Otherwise, it's dependent. Whatever is dependent cannot come first. And if you say that you only have to be open to life, that means life is secondary. If you say that love is the essence of marriage and must be part of it, that means it has to be primary now because you have to have a primary purpose. Something must come first. Love wins. Okay, here's what Aquinas said. I answer that the integrity of the conjugal act, of marriage is twofold. One regards the primal perfection consisting in the very essence of the thing, which we already talked about. Yep, that's right. The other regards the secondary perfection consisting in operation. That's exactly what this guy is saying right here. Okay? Apart from any, wait, hang on a second. Where did he say it? And is the thing sufficient to account for its essential apart from the other contributing ends? Hang on just a minute. Okay, now I got it. Okay, the secondary end, however, is some added or accessory purpose for which the thing exists. All right, so the reason we have the secondary ends is the reason why the primary exists. Okay, so you can do the secondary. That's what it is. So this is why a Josephite marriage is perfectly valid. You don't. It's everything that's needed is there. You don't have to do, but the reason it's there is the secondary ends, which is exactly what Aquinas says here. Okay, the secondary ends regard the secondary perfection consisting in the operation. So the essence is not the operation. You don't have to do the conjugal act to be validly married. You can do it, but you don't have to. There is no obligation to have kids. You don't have to do that. Okay, it's secondary. Doing the conjugal act is secondary. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be love. None of this stuff. As long as you're capable of procreation, that's all it is. So Aquinas continuing, since then carnal intercourse is an operation or use of marriage which gives the faculty for that intercourse, it follows that carnal intercourse belongs to the latter and not the former integrity of marriage. Secondary ends are not the integrity of marriage. You don't have to have them. It doesn't. So like this is why they say you're married. You have to do it has to be a human manner. No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because the good of the spouses is not part of the integrity. It's not part of the essence. Now, let's see if we got it. Of itself, okay, but okay, it may proceed from the primary itself or from the nature of the thing itself, but only for its integral and not its essential perfection. That's exactly what he just said. That's where he got this, like word for word, pretty much. Not its essential perfection. Of itself, it is insufficient to account for even the essential perfection which the nature of the thing demands. In other words, secondary is nice, secondary is good, secondary is how you do the thing, but it's not the essence of the thing. This is why Coffin is all wet, and the whole basis of his talk is without foundation, because he's saying that NFP or the contraception violates the inseparable connection between love and life. There isn't one, never has been one. It's created out of whole cloth to accommodate NFP legally, and we're going to show this. There's no way that Aquinas would approve it, or doesn't exist now, or it won't work. If you don't like me, if you disagree with me, whatever, all about in the comment section. I'll get it all straightened out. That's the only thing I don't do. I don't just hit and run. I'm not just a drive-by shouter. I'll go with you as long as you want in the comments, and we'll talk it all through. I'll nail down exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't go on and on or use debate tactics or run out the clock or whatever. I'll just try to give it real basic, okay? Now, here's some more procreation primary for us. Okay, Patrick Coffin? This is where it's independent and there is no inseparable connection. What did he say? Let's go back. We got it. Let's go back to our roots here on this thing. The ancient Christian teaching. What was it again?
To discipline in any way cardinals, theologians, pastors that dissented from the ancient Christian teaching that love and life belong together.
Love and life may belong together, but they don't have to be together legally or institutionally. And what we've got now is, oh yeah, they do. And that's a modern creation which has brought wreckage everywhere. I already talked about how in a little bit, but like I said, it allows all those evils. It allows all those evils that Humanae Vitae is supposedly secure. If you do Humanae Vitae, you're still going to have them because you've created the intellectual basis for love wins, which means nature and law are out the window, and there's nothing you can say about it. Now, let's go back to procreation primary stuff. So this is Council of Trent. This is infallible. This would be the Roman Catechism. Timothy Gordon gives lip service to this, but I don't know if he reads it straight. Look, this is also in Tobias in the Douay Rheims. P.S. Y'all, whenever there's somebody over at the conference with Patrick Coffin, he's got to use the Douay Rheims. If he uses the NAB or something else, you're going to get a bunch of weird Genesis sprinkled in and editorialized in with what I'm about to read right now. Okay? You have to go with the Douay to get it straight because that's the real Bible. Hence the angel, when informing Tobit, this is catechism, by the way, he means to repel the violent assaults of the evil demon. He says, I will show thee who they are over whom the devil can prevail. Who could that be? For they who in such wise receive matrimony as to shut out God for themselves and from their mind. So there's, okay? And to give themselves to their lust as the horse and mule, which have no understanding. Over them the devil hath power. Is that super clear? Everyone got that? In other words, you're trying not to get pregnant. You're into it for other reasons. What does that sound like? Let's go back to Midwives 1951. What is NFP? It is to avoid procreation, to continue to satisfy their full sensuality. That sounds like horse and mule to me, doesn't it? Over them the devil hath power. Doesn't matter if you do it with artificial contraception or natural contraception, organic family planning, organic, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. If it's all about the act without the baby, that is what this is. No baby, just act. And then what is condemned here in Tobias and in the Roman Catechism? Who can the devil prevail over? Those who shut out procreation and give themselves to lust. Bam, you're in trouble if that's what's going on. That's why NFP makes you weird. I don't know how else to say it. You can quote me on that. Thou shalt take the virgin with the fear of the Lord. Rather move for love of children than for lust. Okay? Yeah. That the seed of Abraham mayest obtain a blessing in children. So, also, in the Douay Rheims, it says, not for fleshly lust, but only for offspring. Only for offspring. And God said, yes, you're not going to die like the rest of the husbands that were seeking the NFP ends. You're going to live. And all that stuff with the fish gallbladder and everything, that didn't hurt at all. That was good. That was a really cool story, by the way. But you got to go to the Douay Rheims or you're losing it. The modernists have messed up the Bible. They've taken nice stuff from Tobit, and like I said, they've added a whole bunch. They've tried to bolt the love in there somehow, and they keep sprinkling Genesis in. It's like editorialized Bible. It's bad. Now, this is more Roman Catechism. This was the sole reason why God instituted marriage from the beginning. Really, the sole reason? I thought there was two reasons, twofold reasons. Love and life, right? Babies and bonding, right? Interpersonal relationship and offspring, right? Two reasons, inseparable. All we've ever been told. JP2, we love you. This is what democracy looks like. This is called synodality. No, no, and no. This was the sole reason why God instituted marriage from the beginning, and hence married persons who by medicine either prevent conception or procure abortion are guilty of the most heinous crime, nothing less than premeditated conspiracy to commit murder. To murder. Okay, so if you use contraception, it's murder. But let's look at it, what it says. Okay, so if you're married and if you prevent conception, it's premeditation for murder. It's That's what you're doing. And it doesn't matter what you use to do that, because anyone can use medicine. It's using medicine to prevent conception. It's not, there's, like I always said, there's two things you got to have with the act: the intrinsic nature and also the purpose. So if you're trying to prevent the purpose, it's conspiracy to murder. Anyone wants to argue with me on that? No problem, can do. Okay, we're almost done. Look at this, Genesis. And Adam said, Eve gets made. This is now bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. That's right, helpmate. That's right. Wherefore, in other words, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother. Patrick Coffin, what is the reason that a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife and become one flesh? What is the reason they do that? What is it, Patrick Coffin? There's one reason, and it's not two reasons. It's procreation. That's the reason. That's it. The sole reason, okay? Hey, we've gotten to the end of the video. Let's see if there's a little more on Patrick Coffin. Just a second.
This is why I'm offering a course.
I
for
think that's
30
probably
students
about
only.
it.
It begins Monday the 17th
Why you would pay for that?
November. There's a coupon.
Whatever.
If you
It's
go to
just
the
more.
checkout,
It's
True North, there's
just
a
more
coupon that
propaganda.
gets
He's
you a
keeping
discount
going.
from the tuition. It's 5
Yeah.
modules, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Yeah,
Friday.
yeah, yeah.
covering
So anyway,
every
if
facet
anyone's
that you
going
need
to this
explain
gig,
why contraception
talk about it.
destroys
Some of the
families,
points I made.
ruins
Ask some of those.
souls, and
Bring
it's
some
connected
questions up.
causally.
Listen, y'all. People are asking these days, where is the love? You might say it is in the marriage contract. The bond of peace is from having the right order. If you're not against NFP, you're not on the team, so go out there and stay toxic.
Where's the love? You told me that you didn't love him, and you were gonna say goodbye. But if you really didn't mean it, why did you have to lie?